Apple is putting a variable aperture camera in the iPhone 18 Pro. Supply chain is already ramping. It's happening. And if that sentence didn't hit you, it should, because Apple has never done this before, not once, in 19 years of iPhone cameras. But here's what nobody's talking about. While the Pro is getting the best camera upgrade in iPhone history, Apple is simultaneously downgrading the standard iPhone 18 to cut costs, slower chip, less memory, closer to the budget 18e than to anything we've seen before. So what does that mean for the iPhone 18 Pro Max? It means the gap just got wider, way wider. And honestly, that changes the whole conversation about whether this phone is worth it. Let me break all of it down. The camera, the chip, the satellite stuff, the colors. Yes, we need to talk about the colors. And the one thing about this year's lineup that I think Apple is quietly betting the farm on, the iPhone 18 Pro and Pro Max are confirmed for September 2026. No iPhone 18 base model alongside them. That's been pushed to spring 2027, which means this fall, if you want a new iPhone, your only options are the Pro Max, and the foldable, all of which will have price tags of $999 or more. Apple is making a very deliberate choice here. They're not splitting attention. They're funneling every person who walks into an Apple store this September toward their most expensive products. And knowing the standard iPhone isn't competing for shelf space changes how I look at what the Pro Max is actually trying to be this year. I've been tracking every credible leak on this thing for months, and there's one upgrade in particular, we'll get to it, that I genuinely didn't think Apple would do this soon. It changes what Pro means on an iPhone camera for real this time. Okay, so the variable aperture, let me explain why this actually matters, because on spec sheets it reads like a feature nobody asked for. The upgrade is on the main 48 megapixel wide lens, what Apple calls the Fusion camera. This gets variable aperture in 2026. It's a mechanical system, actual aperture blades that dynamically adjust their opening to control how much light hits the sensor, giving you more granular control over exposure and depth of field. Now here's the thing every other review is going to miss. This isn't just about low light shots. Variable aperture means you can actually decide how blurry the background is with the main camera in real time before you take the photo, not after, with some AI simulation. For real optically, the way a DSLR does it. A wider aperture blurs backgrounds more for portraits. A narrower aperture keeps more of the scene sharp. That's a different creative experience, not a spec, an experience. Apple's supply chain is already ramping up for this system. This isn't a rumor in the maybe pile. Sony has been Apple's sole image sensor supplier for years, and now Samsung is reportedly developing a new 3-layer stacked sensor for the iPhone 18 designed to improve camera responsiveness, reduce noise, and increase dynamic range. Think about what that combination means. Variable aperture plus a better sensor with more layers of circuitry. That's not an incremental camera upgrade. That's Apple deciding the Pro Max camera needs to actually behave like a camera. And honestly, this is the year they kind of had to, because the iPhone 18 Pro and Pro Max are the only new iPhones in the building this fall. They can't show up average. The A20 Pro chipset is built on TSMC's 2 nanometer process that translates to 15% faster performance and 30% better power efficiency than current models. Now, you've heard the X% faster thing every year since 2017, and you've been lied to approximately every single time. Raw performance hasn't mattered for normal use in years. But here's why 2 nanometers is actually different. It's about efficiency, not speed. A chip that draws 30% less power for the same task means longer battery life without making the phone heavier, except a larger battery with over 5,000 milliamp hours is also confirmed, with capacity estimated between 5,100 and 5,200 milliamp hours. So you're getting the more efficient chip and the bigger battery simultaneously. That combination, historically, is what turns good battery life into 2 days on a single charge territory. If Apple actually hits that, it's the most meaningful daily use upgrade in this phone. There's also something happening on the modem side that nobody's giving enough credit to. Apple's C2 modem is expected in 2026 and could feature millimeter wave 5G connectivity, getting closer in performance to the Qualcomm modems it replaces. And here's where it gets genuinely interesting. The C2 could add support for direct phone to satellite links, potentially allowing the iPhone 18 Pro to offer full internet access over satellite when standard networks are unavailable. Full internet over satellite, not just emergency SOS. Apple is reportedly planning to allow third-party apps to access a satellite connection, plus Apple Maps and Photos could work over satellite. And this part just happened. Amazon has acquired Globalstar, which was the provider for iPhone satellite connectivity. So iPhones and Apple Watches will now fall under Amazon's LEO satellite network. I'm not going to pretend I know exactly how this plays out in terms of pricing or availability, but the fact that full satellite internet is coming to a phone in your pocket, powered by Amazon's orbital network, is the kind of thing that sounds like science fiction until it just quietly becomes real. And this is how it becomes real. Design-wise, I'll be honest with you, the iPhone 18 Pro will largely retain the same design as the iPhone 17 Pro, with an identical raised housing and 3 lenses arranged in a triangle. The Pro Max will be slightly thicker at 8.8 millimeters, up from 8.75, which is expected to push the weight over 240 grams. That's barely perceptible. In the hand, you won't feel it. Relax. What is changing is more subtle but actually nice. Apple is returning to a more unified rear glass finish that blends seamlessly into the titanium frame. The dynamic island is expected to shrink by about 35%, enabled by moving some Face ID components under the display. Smaller pill, bigger screen real estate, more immersive. You'll notice it immediately. Now, the color. The special color for iPhone 18 Pro is dark cherry, replacing cosmic orange, alongside light blue, dark gray, and silver. And dark cherry is already having a moment. In a recent poll, nearly half of respondents picked it as their favorite, described as a shade that combines the elegance of red and maroon into a soft tone that makes everyone do a double take. Here's how I describe it. It's the color for people who thought cosmic orange was too loud, but still wanted something interesting. It doesn't scream at you. From a distance, it reads almost like black. Up close, it stops you. That's genuinely rare for a smartphone color. Also worth noting, no black option again for the second consecutive year. But dark gray is in the lineup, and honestly, it's basically black. Apple just won't call it that. This is the part of the story that reframes everything. Apple is downgrading the planned specs of the standard iPhone 18 as a cost-cutting measure, implementing changes across manufacturing processes, chips, memory, and more. The standard iPhone 18 will apparently have a downgraded chip, downgraded memory, making it closer to the budget 18e than ever before. Think about what that means for how you choose. Historically, the standard iPhone was a legitimately good phone. You paid less and lost a bit of camera, a bit of screen brightness. The fundamentals were similar. That's changing. The standard iPhone 18 could end up sharing more similarities with the iPhone 18e than with anything in Apple's Pro lineup. And here's my honest read on this. Apple isn't doing this out of spite. Costs are climbing, chip prices, memory shortages, and Apple wants to keep the base models sticker steady while protecting margins. But the side effect is that the Pro becomes the only real iPhone this September. Not because Apple said so, because it's also said so because the alternative is frankly weaker than it used to be. If you were on the fence about whether a Pro Max is overkill for you, this year, the math changed. Here's the angle nobody's connecting. Apple is launching September 2026 with three phones: iPhone 18 Pro, iPhone 18 Pro Max, and the iPhone Fold, which could cost upwards of $2,000. Every single iPhone available this fall is $999 or more. There's no safety net, no $799 option. If you want a new iPhone in the fall of 2026, you're paying Pro money, minimum. That's a deliberate funnel. And the iPhone Fold, as exciting as it is for early adopters. The Pro Max is for everyone else who's upgrading. Apple knows this. That's why the Pro Max this year has to be the most complete package they've ever made. Best camera in iPhone history, biggest battery, fastest chip, full satellite internet, and a color that's genuinely turning heads before the phone is even announced. They needed to make the Pro Max undeniable. And from everything we're seeing in the leaks right now, they might have done exactly that. Here's where I land on this. If you're still on an iPhone 15 or older, this is a meaningful jump. Variable aperture camera, 2 nanometer chip, over 5,000 milliamp hour battery, full satellite internet, and a dynamic island that's finally not the size of a small country. The cumulative upgrade is real if you're on a 16 Pro Max. The camera alone might not move you, but the battery and chip combination, that's worth thinking about, especially if you've noticed your 16 starting to slow down on long days. If you're on a 16 Pro Max, the camera alone might not move you, but the battery and chip combination, that's worth thinking about, especially if you've noticed your 16 starting to slow down on long days. If you're on a 17 Pro Max, sit this one out. The design barely changed. The camera is meaningful, but not life-altering. Wait for the 19. And if you were planning to buy the standard iPhone 18 this fall, you can't. It's not out until 2027. Your options are Pro, Pro Max, or Fold. Welcome to Apple's new product strategy. One last thing, and this is genuinely interesting to me. Apple is reportedly evaluating a 200 megapixel telephoto sensor for a future iPhone. Variable aperture was the 2026 story. 200 megapixels might be 2027's. I'm going to be watching what Samsung's sensor division ships later this year, because where their sensors go, the next iPhone camera follows. Is the iPhone 18 Pro Max the most complete iPhone Apple's ever made? Right now, based on everything we know, it might be. Drop your read in the comments, especially if you're deciding between this and waiting for the Fold. See you next video. Peace.